Hello and welcome to my last of 4 top tips for writing EAP resources for other teachers. In this video I'm going to talk about the importance of getting feedback on your writing. It's something that's cropped up a few times already in previous videos, and I think it's a really key element in producing good quality EAP materials. When I was putting together the book How to Write EAP Materials, I contacted a number of top authors and asked them what advice would they give to new EAP writers starting out. They were very generous with their tips in all kinds of areas, but one of the themes that cropped up again and again was the importance of getting feedback on materials. So piloting materials, not just with your own students, but getting colleagues to pilot them as well can be really helpful. Getting reviews, getting people to read your materials and give you feedback in the same way that you would publish materials. And a really important point here from Sue Argent, that it does take a long time to write good quality materials, to revise and rewrite and make sure that they're really solid. So what does this process involve? I tend to think of the writing and feedback process in 3 stages. The first thing you want to do with your first draft is to get the content really clear. So make sure you've got the right kind of input, whether that's texts or language input. Make sure you have activities that work well to exploit that input and to achieve the aims that you want to within a lesson. And once you've got that first draft, piloting and reviewing, making sure that that content works well and that you've got a really solid basis for a lesson. The next stage then is working on the clarity. So that involves editing the text on the page, checking that the wording's right, that everything is consistent. I talked previously about the idea of having a style sheet to ensure consistency across materials. And then the final stage is just tidying up all those details. So make sure you get the final documents proofread to make sure there aren't any typos or errors in the answer keys when something's been changed. Make sure that the design and layout are as good as they can be in your own context. So those are the stages, but how do you deal with the feedback? It's actually quite a tough process. I've been writing materials for publication for 20 years now, and I still dread that moment when the email pops into my inbox from my editor with feedback on my first draft. Invariably, my first reaction is a defensive one. I can get quite angry shouting at the screen, but I didn't mean that. And no, that's obvious, isn't it? But don't people always do that? And that's a perfectly natural reaction. When you've put a lot of time and effort and creative energy into something and somebody else doesn't understand it in the way that you intended it, it's natural to feel frustrated. So I step away from my computer, I go and make a cup of tea, I calm down, and I come back and I start looking at it point by point. And I think the most important thing I've learned through my writing career is that if your reader didn't understand something or they misinterpreted it, that's your fault, not theirs. If you didn't put it down in a way that came across clearly enough on the page, it may be not just that this reviewer didn't understand it correctly, but it may be that other people who see the same thing are going to come to the same incorrect conclusions. And it may not be that you decide to implement the changes suggested by your reviewer, but it tells you that something needs to change. That might be a small tweak, it might be a bit slightly larger change, but you need to do something to ensure that your materials are being understood correctly and that they are clear. I'd like to finish off this section with a lovely quote from Sue Argent. I think that's so true. It can be quite a bruising process going through drafting and getting feedback and revising your materials, but I think it's worth it in the end. So to sum up my 4 top tips. Number 1, make sure that you don't presume that the people reading your materials are going to have exactly the same ideas and knowledge that you do. EAP teachers may come from different backgrounds, they'll bring different areas of expertise, and you need to ensure that the materials you produce are clear to your whole teaching audience. Tip 2, make sure that your aims, rationales and takeaways are clear for everything you write. Make sure that everything justifies its place on the page and that it comes across clearly to the person reading it. Tip 3, try and make sure that your materials are a joy to teach, that when the teacher picks them up, the material literally teaches off the page. Everything's clear and obvious. And number 4, at every stage of the process, getting feedback is going to be the best way to improve your materials. Thanks very much for tuning into these videos. I hope you found some of the ideas useful. If you'd like more tips for things that you might need to consider when you're writing EAP materials, then why not take a look at How to Write EAP Materials. It's available as an ebook and also in paperback with this fabulous pink cover. You can take a look at the ELT Teacher to Writer website or just search for it on Amazon. Thanks for watching.